He's fine. You've turned that boy into a walking lawsuit. That was my mother's response when my brother deliberately fed my son something that sent him to the emergency room. My name is Rachel, and I'm 29 years old. I work as a third-grade teacher at Maplewood Elementary, a job that has taught me more about patience and compassion than anything else in my life. I love my students fiercely, but nothing on this earth compares to what I feel for my son Noah. He is 6 years old, gap-toothed, obsessed with space, and the single best thing that has ever happened to me. Noah has a severe peanut allergy. Not the kind where you get a rash and take a Benadryl and move on. The kind that requires an EpiPen in his backpack, one in my purse, and one in the glove compartment of my car. His allergist, Dr. Chen, described his sensitivity level as among the top 5% she has ever tested. Even trace contact with peanut residue can trigger a reaction. Direct ingestion is potentially fatal. This is not a parenting preference or an overprotective quirk. It is a documented, medically verified, life-threatening condition. I have explained this to my family more times than I can count. Before I tell you about the Easter Sunday that changed everything, I need to give you a picture of who my family is, because the incident didn't come out of nowhere. It came out of years of smaller moments that I kept excusing, minimizing, and absorbing in silence. My brother is 4 years older than me. Growing up, he was the one who got the car for his 16th birthday while I got a card. He was the one whose college tuition was fully paid while I took out loans. He was the one my mother called first when anything happened, good or bad. I don't say this with bitterness anymore. I've done enough therapy to understand it as fact rather than wound. He was simply the favorite, and that favoritism shaped everything. My parents built a comfortable life in the suburbs of Columbus. My father spent 30 years in insurance, and my mother was a real estate agent who retired the moment my father's income allowed it. Their house is large, immaculate, and decorated in a way that tells you immediately that appearance matters here. Every surface is staged. Every holiday is photographed. Every gathering is performed as much as it is experienced. My brother married a woman named Diane 3 years ago. She is pleasant in the way that certain people are pleasant when they're watching you carefully. She has never been openly cruel, but she has a habit of laughing a half-second too late at things that aren't funny, and I've learned to read that as agreement. After Noah's father and I separated, things shifted in ways I hadn't anticipated. The divorce was not dramatic. We were 24 and 26, married too young, and we grew into different people. He moved to Denver, pays his child support reliably, and calls Noah on Sundays. There is no villain in that story. But after it happened, I became something different in my family's eyes. I became the one who needed help. The one who hadn't quite managed her life correctly. And Noah, without anyone saying it aloud, became evidence of my failure. My mother started referring to his allergy as Rachel's thing. As in, we have to work around Rachel's thing at Christmas. As in, you know how Rachel is about Rachel's thing. She never said it with malice that I could prove. It was always delivered with a small, tired sigh, as though accommodating a medical reality was an inconvenience she had graciously agreed to tolerate. My brother was less subtle. He called Noah's allergy a psychological dependency once, at Thanksgiving in front of Noah, who was 4 years old and eating plain turkey and mashed potatoes while everyone else had pecan pie. My brother had read something online, he said, about how children develop food anxiety when parents are overly focused on allergies. I pulled up the allergist report on my phone and showed him the test results. He shrugged. "Doctors are wrong all the time," he said. My mother nodded slowly in a way that suggested she found this perspective worth considering. I kept going to those dinners because I wanted Noah to have grandparents. I wanted him to have a table that felt like family, cousins running through the backyard, someone who remembered his birthdays. I kept believing that if I was patient enough, if I explained clearly enough, if I brought the right snacks and the right attitude, something would click. I was wrong about that. Easter Sunday started the way those days usually do. My mother had called me twice the week before to confirm I was coming and to ask whether I still needed to bring Noah safe foods or whether I thought he might try to be more flexible this time. I explained again that flexibility was not a factor in anaphylaxis. She said, of course, in the tone of someone who has stopped listening. The house smelled like ham and something sweet when Noah and I arrived. My cousin Sarah was already there with her husband and their daughter Lily. Sarah is the only person in my extended family who has consistently treated Noah's allergy as a real thing rather than a personality flaw. She always texts me ahead of family events to confirm what she's bringing so I can cross-check ingredients. She's small and loud and laughs easily, and I am grateful for her in ways I don't always find words for. Noah ran immediately to find Lily, and I carried his safe foods to the kitchen to put them in a clearly labeled bag in the refrigerator. I found my mother arranging a dessert tray. I recognized the brownies in the center immediately as the ones she bought from a local bakery that uses almond flour and clearly states on the packaging that they're produced in a facility that processes peanuts. I had flagged this bakery before. "Mom, those brownies aren't safe for Noah." She looked at them, then at me. "They're almond flour, Rachel. There's no peanut in them." "The facility processes peanuts. It's on the label." Cross-contamination. You can't live your whole life in a bubble. She moved the tray to make room for a fruit plate. "I'm going to put them out of reach, okay? I'll put them on the high shelf by the window." "He can have the sugar cookies on the left." She gave me the sigh. The small, tired one. "Fine, Rachel." I moved the brownie tray and went to find Noah. The first hour was ordinary by the standards of our family dinners. My father asked my brother about a business investment. My mother asked Diane about a renovation project. I sat next to Sarah and we talked quietly about her daughter's new school and Noah's upcoming class play. Noah and Lily colored at the kids' table in the corner, happy and separate from the adult performance happening around them. My brother came to refill his drink near the kids' table at some point. I noticed him pausing there, saying something to Noah, but I couldn't hear it over my father's voice. I saw him set something down on the table in front of Noah. I thought it was one of the sugar cookies from the left plate. I went back to my conversation with Sarah. I have replayed that moment 10,000 times in the months since. The way I glanced and looked away. The way I trusted. I will carry that for a long time. About 15 minutes later, Lily came running to find me. "Noah says his throat feels weird." I was on my feet before she finished the sentence. Noah was at the table, his face flushed, one hand pressed to his throat. His eyes were wide in a way that I recognized from his one previous reaction when he was 3 and got into a trail mix at a birthday party. I had his EpiPen out of my bag before I reached him. "Baby, open your mouth for me." He opened. His lips were slightly swollen. Not severely, not yet, but I could see it beginning. "What did you eat?" I kept my voice steady. I am a teacher. I know how to keep my voice steady when everything inside me is not. "Uncle gave me a brownie." His voice was slightly hoarse. "He said they were the special ones." I administered the EpiPen. My hands did not shake until afterward. The room had gone very quiet. I picked Noah up and turned to face my family. My brother was standing near the counter with his drink. His expression was the one people wear when they've done something they knew was risky and are now waiting to see if it worked out. "Did you give him a brownie from the tray by the window?" My voice was quiet. He shrugged with one shoulder. I wanted to see if he'd actually react. "You've been so dramatic about this whole thing for years, Rach." I thought, "We need an ambulance." I looked at Sarah, not at my brother, because I could not afford what I felt about my brother in that moment. My mother said, from somewhere behind me, "He seems okay, Rachel. Don't make a scene. He has been given a food that could kill him. Call 911 or move out of my way." Sarah was already on the phone. Noah started crying. The hoarse, scared kind of crying that a 6-year-old does when he knows something is wrong with his own body but doesn't understand what. He pressed his face into my neck and I held him and kept talking to him, telling him what was happening to him medically, the same way I would tell one of my students. Calmly, with vocabulary that gave him something to hold on to. My mother said, "He's fine. You've turned that boy into a walking lawsuit." My father said nothing. He watched from the kitchen doorway with his arms crossed and the particular expression he wears when something uncomfortable is happening, and he has decided it is not his responsibility. My brother said, "The EpiPen already worked. I can see it did. You're overreacting." The paramedics arrived in 7 minutes. I counted. I have never been more aware of time in my life. The EMTs were efficient and professional. One of them, A young woman with her hair pulled back, knelt down to Noah's level and talked to him about space while she assessed him. He told her, in his still slightly hoarse voice, that he wanted to be an astronaut. She said she thought he'd be great at it. I watched her work and felt the particular grief of being treated with competence and care by a stranger when your own family is standing in the next room, defending the person who hurt your child. They recommended hospital observation, given the severity of his allergy and the fact that EpiPen administration had been required. We rode in the ambulance together. Noah held my hand the entire way. At the hospital, I told the intake nurse exactly what had happened. I said, my brother knew about my son's allergy. There had been multiple documented conversations about it, and he deliberately fed him a food from a facility that processes peanuts to test whether the allergy was real. The nurse looked at me carefully. Did he do this intentionally? Yes. I'm going to need you to speak with someone from our patient advocacy team. A woman named Gwendolyn came to speak with me while Noah was being monitored. She was soft-spoken and asked her questions in a way that made it clear she'd asked them many times before. I answered everything. The history of conversations about the allergy, the previous reaction when he was 3, my brother's comment at Thanksgiving about psychological dependency. The fact that I had moved the brownie tray and he had retrieved it and given a piece to Noah anyway. The fact that he had said directly that he wanted to see if Noah would actually react. She made notes without reacting visibly to any of it. At the end, she said, "What I'm hearing describes deliberate exposure of a child to a known allergen. Given the severity of the allergy and his age, this is something I'm required to report." I had not expected to feel relieved by those words. I did. While Noah was being observed, I checked my phone. My mother had called 3 times. I let them go to voicemail. I could not have a conversation with her from a hospital room while my son was hooked up to monitors. I checked the texts instead. My brother, "You really called an ambulance?" He was fine. The EpiPen worked immediately. "You embarrassed everyone." My mother, "Your brother is very upset. You humiliated him in front of the whole family. We need to talk about this." My father, "Your mother is crying. Call when you've calmed down." "Diane, Derek didn't mean any harm. He just wanted to see if it was real. You know how he is." Not one message asked how Noah was. Not one said his name. Sarah texted separately, "At the house. Making sure Lily is okay. I heard everything. I'm so sorry. I'm here if you need anything. I believe you." I held that message for a long time. Noah was discharged after 3 hours with instructions to follow up with his allergist within 48 hours and to monitor closely for the next 12. He fell asleep on the car ride home, one hand still loosely curled around my finger through the armrest gap. I drove in silence except for the navigation and the sound of his breathing. Back at our apartment, I got him settled and then sat at the kitchen table and let myself feel everything I had been holding since the moment Lily came running to find me. The fear came first. The physical memory of how quickly a reaction can escalate. Then the rage. Then something quieter and heavier than both of them, which was grief. Not for what happened that day, specifically, but for all the Sundays I had sat at that table and wanted so badly to belong to a family that was capable of protecting my son. I called my mother back. It was almost 11 at night. She answered immediately. "Finally, I've been sick with worry." "Worried about what specifically?" I asked. "About this whole situation. Your brother is devastated. He didn't mean," he said in front of multiple witnesses, "that he gave Noah that brownie because he wanted to see if the allergy was real. That's not an accident. He was just testing a 6-year-old with a life-threatening condition. And when the reaction happened, you told me not to make a scene." There was a pause. Then, "You've always been so dramatic about this. Since Noah was diagnosed, everything has become about the allergy. Every dinner, every holiday, every family event. Because every dinner, every holiday, and every family event involves food, and my son can die from certain foods. That's not drama. That's physiology. Derek is your brother. He loves Noah. If he loves Noah, he needs to say what he did was wrong and that he will never do it again. That's the minimum. Until that happens, we won't be at family gatherings. Easter is over, Rachel. Christmas is months away. Don't make ultimatums you'll regret. This isn't an ultimatum about Christmas. This is about the fact that my son was taken to the hospital tonight because someone in that house made a deliberate choice to harm him. The hospital has filed a report. Another pause, longer this time. What kind of report? A mandatory report for potential child endangerment. It's standard when a child is intentionally exposed to a known allergen. You had them do that to your own brother? The hospital is required by law to report it. I didn't have them do anything. I told the truth about what happened. My mother's voice shifted. The tiredness left it, and something colder came in. Your father and I have helped you more than you know since the divorce. We've given you money when you needed it, watched Noah when you had evening events, included you in everything. And this is how you treat us? Having government workers call our home over a brownie? Not over a brownie. Over a child in an ambulance. You're going to destroy this family. No, I said, and I was surprised by how steady I sounded. I'm going to protect my son. Those are different things. I ended the call. My father called at 7 the next morning. I was getting Noah ready for school, watching him eat his safe cereal with the particular focus he applies to things he enjoys, and I let the call go to voicemail. I listened to it in the parking lot after drop-off. Rachel, this is your father. Your mother was up all night. Your brother is talking about getting a lawyer because of the false report you filed. I don't know what you think you're accomplishing, but you've hurt a lot of people over one incident that was, frankly, handled well by everyone. Noah is fine. You need to let this go and call your mother today. I sat in the parking lot for several minutes. A sparrow landed on the hood of my car, looked at me, and flew away. Then I called Sarah. She answered on the second ring. I was waiting to hear from you. How's Noah? He's okay. Back in school. How are you? Angry? She said. I still remembered the casual shrug. As she handed me $200, the casual shrug. As she said something, I've been sick about it. You couldn't have known what he intended. I know what he's been saying for years about the allergy. She put it together faster. She paused. Rachel, this isn't the first time he's done something like this. Not the allergy specifically, but the testing things. When Lily was little, he gave her sips of his beer twice because he wanted to see her reaction. He thought it was funny. I never said anything because it seemed small and I didn't want to be the person who made it into a thing. I need to write that down. Can I call you back and go through it properly? Whenever you need. I'm not going anywhere. I followed up with Dr. Chen, who was quiet for a long moment after I finished telling her what had happened. Then she said, I want you to know that I will provide any documentation you need. His reaction was consistent with a significant exposure, not trace contact. This was not a mild case of someone not knowing. If someone had looked at his file and chosen to test it, they would have understood what they were risking. She referred me to a patient advocate she had worked with before, a woman named Patricia who helped families navigate situations involving medical conditions being deliberately disregarded. I called Patricia that afternoon. What you're describing is not unusual, she said, which I found both comforting and disturbing. Family members dismissing documented medical conditions, particularly in children, and then escalating to deliberate exposure. It's a pattern I see frequently. The good news is that you have extensive documentation, the allergist's records, the ER report, the mandatory referral, previous documented conversations. What I'd recommend is speaking with a family law attorney and formally putting your position in writing to your family, so there's a legal record of your boundaries. I had a friend from college, Marisol, whose sister was a family attorney in Columbus. I called Marisol that evening, explained enough of the situation that she understood the urgency and had a consultation scheduled within 4 days. In the meantime, I started keeping a written record. I went back through my texts and emails and wrote out a timeline of every conversation about the allergy that I could remember, noting dates, what was said, and who was present. The pattern was worse than I'd realized when I was living inside it. My brother dismissing the allergy at Thanksgiving 2021. My mother referring to it as Rachel's thing on at least a dozen documented occasions. A birthday party 2 years ago where my brother had put a bowl of mixed nuts on the table directly in front of Noah, because I didn't know where else to put it, and then laughed when I moved it. A smaller incident the previous summer when he had offered Noah something at a barbecue that I'd had to check the label on and found did contain a peanut warning. He had rolled his eyes at me for checking. These things I had processed individually as separate minor frictions. Written down in sequence, they looked different. 3 days after Easter, my brother showed up at my apartment. I saw him through the peephole before I opened the door, and I did 2 things. I texted Sarah to tell her where I was, and I started a voice recording on my phone, which I slipped into my back pocket before I opened the door. "We need to talk," he said. "Noah's at school, you can come in for 10 minutes. He came in and stood in the middle of my living room without sitting down. He looked the way my brother always looks when he thinks he's about to win something. Chin slightly elevated, hands loose at his sides. "Mom and Dad are really hurt," he said. "I know. This whole CPS thing is completely out of proportion. I made a mistake. I should have checked the label more carefully. You told multiple people in that room that you gave him the brownie to test whether the allergy was real." His expression shifted very slightly. "I was joking. You weren't joking at Thanksgiving 2 years ago when you told me the allergy was probably psychological. You weren't joking last summer when you put the mixed nuts in front of him. You have consistently communicated that you don't believe his allergy is real, and then you acted on that belief by deliberately giving him food you knew I'd identified as unsafe. You're going to cost me my job with this report. My company does background checks for anything involving. I didn't file a report. The hospital filed a report. Because a child was brought into the emergency room after deliberate exposure to a known allergen. He's fine." I looked at my brother for a long moment. He is 4 years older than me and grew up in the same house, and I have loved him in the complicated way you love someone you have never fully trusted. I thought about all the dinners, all the times I packed Noah's safe foods and driven to that house hoping this time would be the time they saw him clearly. "He is fine," I said. "Because of the EpiPen I carry everywhere, and because the paramedics arrived quickly, and because the ER team was excellent. Not because of anything you did. If I hadn't had that EpiPen, or if I'd been in the bathroom, or if Sarah hadn't come to find me immediately, this conversation would be happening very differently." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Mom and Dad want you to come to the family dinner next Sunday. Drop this whole thing. Tell the CPS people it was a misunderstanding and we move on." "No. Excuse me. Noah and I won't be at family dinners until there is a genuine, specific acknowledgement of what you did and a commitment to never doing anything like it again. And I need that from Mom and Dad too, not just silence, but an actual acknowledgement that this was serious." He laughed, a short, disbelieving sound. "You're not serious." "I'm completely serious. I'm completely serious. You know they'll cut you off. They've been helping you financially since the divorce. That ends if you keep this up." "I know." He stared at me. I had surprised him. I had surprised myself a little. "You're going to end up alone," he said. "Just you and your weird kid and your grudges." I opened the door. "I'd like you to leave now." He left. I closed the door and stood with my back against it, heart pounding, and checked the recording. It had captured everything, including the part where he said, "your weird kid," including the part about the financial threat. I sent the file to Marisol that night. The attorney consultation happened 4 days later. Her name was Veronica, and she went through the documentation I had assembled with the focus of someone who had done this many times. "Here's where you are," she said when she finished. "The mandatory report is on file. The ER records support your account. Your brother's own statements, including what you've now recorded, establish intent and pattern. If your family makes any direct contact that feels threatening, or if your brother comes to your home again uninvited, we can pursue a protective order." She paused. "I also want to flag the financial threat. If your parents have been providing financial support and explicitly tie its continuation to you withdrawing cooperation from the investigation, that's worth documenting." I had not thought of it as a threat before she named it. I had thought of it as just how things worked in my family. I wrote that down too. My parents did stop sending money. The monthly transfer my father had been making since the divorce simply stopped without a conversation. I had been budgeting around it. It took some reorganizing, but I had been a teacher for 6 years and I knew how to stretch things. I picked up one extra tutoring client on Thursday evenings. Marisol's sister took my case at a reduced rate in exchange for tutoring her younger daughter. I found a way through because I had to and because I had, it turned out, more than I realized. The CPS investigation moved forward. a caseworker named Angela came to my apartment for a home visit that was the most surreal 45 minutes of my life. She walked through our space with the careful, neutral expression of someone trained not to reveal conclusions, asked Noah several questions while he showed her his space posters, and then sat with me in the kitchen while he watched a video in his room. "Your home is clearly loving and well organized," she said. "Noah seems healthy and comfortable." She looked at her notes. "We've spoken with several family members. The accounts are not consistent, but the medical documentation and the recording you provided are significant." She closed her folder. "I want to be clear that this investigation is focused on your brother's behavior and on whether the family environment poses a risk to Noah. Based on what I've seen and heard, I'm recommending supervised contact as the standard for any future interaction between Noah and the family members present at the Easter gathering." Supervised contact. The words landed heavily even though I had expected them. 6 weeks after Easter, I got a voicemail from my cousin Sarah. Her voice was careful in the way people get when they're delivering information they don't want to deliver. "I talked to Aunt Carol today. She said Derek and Diane are going to couples counseling because Diane is having a hard time with everything that's come out. And she said your parents have agreed to go to a family therapist. I don't know what that means for you yet. I just thought you should hear it." I sat with that for a long time. Then I texted Sarah back and thanked her for telling me. The months that followed were harder and more ordinary than I expected. I had prepared for drama and instead got quiet. My brother did not contact me again. My parents sent one formal, short email saying they were working through things and hoped to be in touch when they had more to say. I replied that I was glad they were getting support and that I hoped it was helpful. I did not know what to do with hope for my family except to set it down carefully and not carry it too close to my chest. What I did instead was build. Marisol and I had lunch every other Sunday, and sometimes she brought her daughter and Noah taught her about constellations from a library book he'd become obsessed with. I joined a parent support group at Noah's school for families of kids with severe allergies, and it was the first time I had sat in a room and talked about the allergy without feeling like I was imposing on someone. Patricia, the patient advocate, introduced me to another mother in the group whose son had a similar reaction history. We became the kind of friends that form quickly and solidly out of shared understanding. Noah continued seeing his therapist, a gentle man named Dr. Kajirad Avery, who used drawing and clay work and age-appropriate questions to help him process what had happened. After their 4th session, Dr. Avery spoke with me briefly in the hallway. He asked me today whether Uncle did what he did on purpose. He paused. "He's looking for a way to make sense of it. I want you to know he's doing the work, and he's resilient. But he's going to need consistent reassurance from you that the people in his world now are safe." "They are," I said. "I know," Dr. Avery said. "I just want to make sure he knows." I made sure he knew. Almost 4 months after Easter Sunday, I was grading papers at my kitchen table when my father called. I answered, which surprised both of us, I think. "Rachel." His voice was different from the voicemail he'd left the morning after Easter. More tired, less armored. "Your mother and I have been working with someone, a therapist. She's helped us look at some things we didn't want to look at." He stopped, started again. "I don't have the words to say this the right way. I'm not sure there are right words. We allowed things to go on with your brother that we shouldn't have. We told ourselves they were small things. We told ourselves you were being too sensitive, we were wrong." I set down my pen. "Is Noah okay?" he said. "Is he actually okay?" "He's okay, Dad." His eyes lit up last night at dinner telling me about a documentary he watched about Mars. My father made a sound that I don't have a word for. "Good. That's good." Another pause. "Your mother and I aren't asking to come back to Sunday dinners right away. We understand that's not where we are, but we wanted you to know we're not done. We're going to keep going to the sessions. And when you think it makes sense, we'd like to see him." "I'll think about what that could look like," I said. "I'm glad you're doing the work." It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't resolution. It was the first sentence of something that might eventually become a different kind of story, and I held on to it loosely, without expectation, the way you hold something fragile that you're not yet sure is real. My brother did not call. According to my father, he was still maintaining that the whole situation had been blown out of proportion. Maybe that would change someday. Maybe it wouldn't. I stopped letting that question have too much space in my thinking. On a Saturday in late August, Noah and I went to the Science Museum with Marisol and her daughter. Noah stood in front of the solar system installation for 22 minutes. I timed it because I found it beautiful. This small person absorbing something enormous with complete absorption. He asked questions faster than the museum volunteer could answer them, and the volunteer, a retired chemistry teacher with patience I recognized as professional and genuine, matched his energy note for note. On the way home, Noah was quiet for a while in the back seat. Then he said, "Mom, did Uncle mean to hurt me?" I had known this question was coming. I had thought about how to answer it many times. "Yes," I said. "He made a bad choice. He did something that hurt you. Why?" "I don't know exactly. Sometimes people make bad choices because they don't believe something is real even when it is. And sometimes they make bad choices because they haven't learned to think carefully about how their choices affect other people. That's a really bad reason to hurt someone. It is. Is he going to do it again?" "No," I said. And I said it the way I say things to him when I need him to feel certain. Because you are not going to be in situations where he can. I am going to make sure of that. That is my job, and I am very good at my job. He thought about this. Like how you're good at fractions. Exactly like that. He laughed the way he laughs, sudden and whole, and went back to looking out the window, apparently satisfied. I watched the road and felt something settle in my chest that I recognized as peace. Not because everything was fixed, not because my family had become what I'd always wanted them to be, but because the most important thing, the small person in the backseat asking honest questions and trusting my answers, was safe, and held, and completely, entirely, okay. Have you ever had to draw a hard line with family to protect someone you love? I'd like to hear what helped you find the courage. Leave it in the comments, and if this story spoke to something real for you, please subscribe. You deserve to hear that protecting your child is never the wrong choice. No matter who you have to protect them from,